Good morning. My name is Mike Hobson with the Centreville Press. Today we have our special guest, Joann Medders, who's here to talk to us about her recollection of the 1973 Bibb County or Brent-Centreville tornado that did a lot of damage to a lot of people and to a lot of homes here in Bibb County. So Joann, welcome to the Centreville Press, and thank you for taking your time to come up here. We know that everybody who does video like this for the first time might feel a little bit uncomfortable, but as we go through this, I know you'll feel like you're at home, or that's my goal, is to make you feel like you're at home. And we're just talking today, so there's not any hard questions. But I would like to start by just asking you to tell the people who might see this who you are. You know, where you're from originally. I don't even know. I guess you went to Bibb County High School, just like most of us did. But just start with your upbringing, who your parents are, and who your family is.
Okay. I'm Joann Medders. I've lived in Brent all of my life. I graduated from Bibb County High School. My parents were Fleetwood and Marilla Marchant. I had a sister who was also in the tornado, whose name was Faye Dowdle.
Faye's your sister?
Faye's my sister.
Okay.
Yes. So I've just been here all my life.
All right. And who are your offspring and your husband?
My husband was Tucker Medders. He died 10 years ago with Alzheimer's. My older daughter was Angela Medders Bobo. She died 5 years ago. She was a resident in Michigan. I have a son who lives in Leeds, Craig Medders, and I have a daughter, Amanda Hardenberg, that lives in Chelsea. Okay,
so I know a lot of those people that you've named, and I know that there's a lot of Medders around Bibb County, so that helps us all to keep straightened out, you know, which part of the family that you have your roots in. So we're going to talk about the tornado, which the date of that, if you don't remember, was May 27, 1973. And the reason we're doing this is because we're coming up on the 50th anniversary of that event. And of course, the people of Brent, especially the Brent City Council, wanted to memorialize and have some record of experiences from people who were here at the time. For myself, I was not here. I was not living here then. I had been out of high school for a few years, and I was living in Birmingham when the tornado came through, although my parents, my grandparents, of course, you know my granddaddy, Victor Hobson, who used to live right by the church. So I wasn't here, and I'm glad I missed it all. And my parents' home was not damaged. My granddaddy's home was not really damaged, although it was right next to the church. But we want to talk about your experiences. So where were you in May 27th?
Well, I was in my favorite place, my church, Brent Baptist Church. I want to back up just a few hours before the tornado hit.
All right.
My mother and daddy, Mr. and Miss Marchant, and my aunt and uncle, Ari and Jeff Stewart, they were going to a Marchant family reunion over at Colon, Alabama. And so they left about lunchtime going over there. Well, about 2 o'clock, they appeared back home. And I said, Mother, what are y'all doing back home? And she said, well, just as we got out at where they were having the family reunion, this Tuscaloosa sheriff's deputy came up to us and said, are y'all from Brent? And they said, yes. And he said, your town just got blown away by a tornado. Now, to me, that was prophecy of what was going to happen that day. So it was a hot day. The wind was blowing. About 6:30, the kids and I get ready and go to church. Tucker, my husband, was working the 3 to 11 shift in Tuscaloosa at Gulf States Paper. So he was not with us. Just at the end of our discipleship training class, we get the word for everybody to go downstairs. There's a tornado coming. Well, I had no idea where my children were. At that time, Angela was 14, Craig was 12, and Amanda was 8. And they were in their classes, and there was no time to start hunting children. And I found out later, Craig had run out to the highway in front of the church to watch it coming up the road. Well, he comes running in as it neared, and just as he went through the door going to the basement, the steel beam that was holding the roof fell in, and it killed Mr. Andrew Mitchell. And from that time on, I always impressed on Craig, God saved you for a purpose. Now you need to find that purpose. It could have been you that was taken by the steel beam. My sister was on second floor, and she was trying to get to the basement, but in her trying to get there, the whole block wall fell in on her leg, which she lost. At a time like this, it's hard to even think. And I found out that they were trying to find a way to take her to the hospital.
Right.
And Phil Cottingham got somebody's car that had a broken windshield, and someone went to the shop where the city kept their big machinery, and they cleared the road so Phil could get the car out and take Faye to Perry County Hospital. There was no way to go toward DCH. So my brother, Arnett Marchant, and stayed with Faye in the back seat of the car holding a tourniquet on her leg. Otherwise, she would have been bled to death before she ever got to Perry County. It was so neat how the Lord provided also, because this was the first Sunday night that this nurse in our church, Linda Thompson Hammett, had come back to church. So Linda was there to minister help to all the others that were hurt that night. A funny thing was, the ladies in the church had just put new curtains down in our basement. And Jerry Powell, bless his heart, was throwing all the windows open to relieve the pressure in the room. And right behind him, as he was throwing the windows up, Miss Catherine Cottingham was throwing them back down because she said, we're ruining our new curtains. So we had a plus and a minus at that time. But, I think back to the ones that Kenny Burt, I remember him for taking me and the children he cut a path to take us to our house to see if we still had a house. And we got there, and our house was still standing. It had a big tree through the front windows. I had just had this lady in Clanton to recover my furniture, to make me new drapes, and I was just so proud of my new living room. And that tree came through.
Right through the window.
But the neat thing was my china cabinet in there, not one dish was broken.
That's amazing. Where was your house?
On 4th Street in Brent, the same street that Brent School is on.
Okay, so as you go into the school, you're in one of those houses right along there before you get to the school.
Right.
Okay.
So it has just brought back so many memories. Tucker, when he came off of the 3-11 shift that night, he met some men coming on for the night shift. And they said, Tucker, did you know that Brent was blown away? Well, he didn't, because, they didn't listen, I guess, to a radio as they worked. And
did you say he worked in Goodrich?
No, he worked at Gulf State Paper.
Okay, in Tuscaloosa.
In Tuscaloosa.
Right.
So he came in, and when he got to the 4-way stop up there, they told him he could not come in. And he said, but I don't know if my wife and my children are safe. So they finally let him come in. But it was just a tumultuous night.
Right. Two things I want to ask you. One is about that sheriff's deputy that you said came to your event, a family reunion, I think you said. Where was that reunion?
In Colon, Alabama.
Okay, in Colon. So that's in Tuscaloosa County. And there are a lot of people there?
Yes. When you get the marchants together, you've got a big family.
Yeah. So it was a marching bunch. But, it seems like I've heard that story or something like that before. I don't know if it's the same story. But do you know, what time of the day was that?
It was at noon.
Around noon?
They left probably around 12, and it would have taken an hour to go to where they were having the family reunion.
Okay. So did anybody ever explain to you why this deputy, where he got his information, or why he showed up there?
It was just such a time. But that always, I thought, that was prophecy.
It sure sounds like it. It sure does. There weren't any reports on the news or that you know about a tornado coming through Brent at midday.
No. It was, I remember when they got back home, and I remember standing outside of their house, and it was a hot day. The wind was blowing very fiercely, but then it was 7 hours till the tornado actually hit.
Right. Well, so your sister Faye, the brick wall that fell on her, was she buried under a lot of debris?
Yes.
They dig her out?
Because the building was block on the inside, and so all that came in on her leg. She stayed in the hospital for a year, and they finally had to take her leg off.
I've seen some pictures, and of course I haven't seen her in a long, long time. Were there any other people who were buried in that pile of debris? that you
I
remember?
don't know. I don't think in that hallway there was anybody but her, but there were other people hurt. Miss Pauline Hunt. Seems like Mr. Andrew Mitchell, he was killed, and I don't remember where he was killed instantly or whether or not, he was in the hospital. I just have no memory of that.
Right.
We had a new preacher coming in, and the pastorium was next to the church, and he was David McGowan, and he was a chaplain in the National Guard, and he was over in Mississippi. So someone, well, I guess the Guard, flew him into Brent, and David stayed at our house till they could get the pastorium fixed enough that he could stay down there.
Right. Well, that's quite a story. Were any of your other children injured in any way?
No, I remember finally my Amanda, who was 8 at the time, and her friend Kimberly Peak, they found me in the basement. And so I remember taking them, and there was a little ledge outside the kitchen where food was served, and I kind of stuck them up under that ledge, and Amanda probably would still remember. She said all Mother was saying was, pray, pray, pray. And so, it sounded like a train came through the fellowship hall, and just in an instant it was gone.
Mm-hmm. Well, how'd you get home that night?
Kenny Burt led my little family. He had maybe a saw or something, and he was cutting down tree limbs to let us through, because the church and my house were not over 2 blocks apart.
Right.
But there was live wires also in the road, and so Kenny was very careful leading us home.
So y'all walked
So we walked home.
through the jungle, and he got you through there.
Right. I think it was maybe a big tree or something that landed on our car. We had just got a new car, first new car we had ever had. Mm-hmm. And I remember it had this green leather top, and it was white, and I was so proud of it. I'm thinking we had not had it many months when it got smashed.
Do you remember what kind of car it was?
A Chevrolet.
Chevrolet with
A Chevrolet.
a green top.
Yes.
White with a green top?
A dark green top.
Okay.
Yes. We were so proud of that car.
Yeah, I guess so. So, did the National Guard finally let your husband come on into the house?
Yes, yes.
Well, what do you recall about the cleanup and the way that things happened after the tornado had passed through, and everybody had gotten their shot over the shock of the tornado? Mm-hmm. What do you remember about the next few days and about how things started happening after that?
I remember friends and family that Tucker had some family in Birmingham, and they came that Monday morning, and I was just kind of in a daze. Mm-hmm. And they were so good to help us sort through stuff. It was just so interesting how my living and dining room were closed off. I mean, the doors were shut. Would you believe that a lamp that was in my living room behind closed doors ended up in my bedroom, down the hall in my bedroom? I mean, it was just all those odd things. And I remember the Salvation Army were the ones that were there first, giving out food, water, all of that. And I always, since then, have contributed to the Salvation Army because they were the first ones to help us.
Right. Do you recall how long it was, how much time elapsed before you were able to get electricity back to your home and be able to cook and do things normally at your home?
I'm thinking maybe about a week. I remember, the cold baths. We had water.
Right.
But no hot water.
No hot water.
No hot water.
Right.
Yes.
Who lived on that street, on 4th Street? Who were your neighbors?
Okay, Ari and Jeff Stewart, who were my aunt and uncle, and my brother, Arnett Marchant, and his wife, Faye, and then Mother and Daddy in the next house, and then Tucker and I were in the next house, and then Faye, that was hurt, she and Bill Dowdle lived in the last house. So it really was a family street.
Yeah. Sounds like everybody on there was closely related on that street.
Right.
And the last house before you got to the school, that was Faye's house, right?
Faye and Bill.
Right. Well, I remember that.
Yeah.
Hadn't been just a few years ago that, haven't they removed that house?
They did. The Board of Education bought the lot and sold the house off of it. And they use it for a parking lot now.
Right. But are all the other houses on that street are still the same houses are there? Except
Mother and Daddy's house. Arnett's daughter, Tony, and R.L. Hobson. Arnett sold the house that Mother and Daddy had, and then Tony and R.L. built a house where that house was. But it's still kind of a family street.
Right. Well, did anybody else you had a tree in the window. Anybody else have any serious damage to their house?
Well, Mother and them lost their roof, had a lot of water damage.
Right.
I don't think Arnett nor Aunt Ari, I don't think they had anything except, and I remember between my house and Mother and Daddy's house at the time, it was kind of a little hill down. And when we finally got the yard cleaned up, there was just pieces of tin off of somebody's roof.
Right.
At the bottom of that was a little family of puppies, maybe 4 little puppies. That, of course, by then they were all dead.
Right.
But I thought, those little puppies didn't know what was happening when they were picked up at somebody's house and dropped off on 4th Street.
Right. Right. No telling where they came from.
But, I remember we had church just on the slab of concrete that next Sunday. But you could just see neighbors helping neighbors, friends helping friends.
Right. Well, we've heard a lot about that, about how the community pulled together after the tornado. What do you, you've been living in Brent all your life, I guess. Your your parents lived on that street then. Is that where you were raised, on that street?
I was born and raised down at Harrisburg.
Okay.
And then when I was about 4 or 5, I moved to that street that I still live on.
Right.
Mother and Daddy built the house.
Okay. So was that after you got married?
No, they built the house when I was like 4 or 5 years old. Yeah.
Well, you hadn't gone far away.
No. I've traveled the world, but I have never moved.
Well, when you like where you live, you don't want to move anywhere else.
No. That's right.
Well, having been there for that long, what do you miss most about Brent the way it was before the storm? What do you remember about it before the storm?
We really had more stores. You know, it was more like a little town. The main street was lined on either side with trees, and that's why the cleanup was so hard, because of all those trees that was there. And I miss that part of Brent.
Right.
You know, we don't have the businesses that we had back then.
Doesn't look anything like it did then, does it?
No. Mm-mm.
Well, what else do you recall about the storm that happened as a consequence of that storm? Any stories that you can pull out of your memory about things that happened that you can't explain? Well, you can't explain the deputy unless he was an angel.
That's right.
That came to visit you.
That's right.
And you don't explain. You can't explain why your son got by that falling steel beam without some help from somewhere.
That's right.
So what else do you have to recall that happened that day?
At my age of 85, I've pulled out about all I can remember.
All right, I understand that. Well, those are all good memories, and we really do appreciate you coming up here and talking about this and telling us what you remember. And I know the people that might take a look at this are going to really appreciate you telling your story.
Well, I've enjoyed, if you can say enjoyed, I've enjoyed reminiscing about that time in my life and how faithful God was to us, that we had no more deaths in the tornado than we did. And that that point in my children's life, that was so important because it strengthened their faith.
I would think that it would have a lasting memory, a lasting impression on them.
And to this day, I keep reminding my son Craig, you were left for a purpose.
How old is Craig now?
Craig is maybe 59.
Okay. Well, I hope he's found his purpose. And if he hadn't, I hope he's still looking for it.
That's right. Oh, yes.
So thank you again for coming up here.
Well, thank you for inviting me to come and reminisce with you.
All right.